Nocode HQ, and today we'll be actually building our own flight search engine or flight price comparison web app using Bubble, as well as the external API called Skyscanner Flight Search API, which is hosted on rapidapi, and you can use this API for free. And you will also, of course, need a Bubble account, which you can also create for free and start building your first app for free. So basically, just to summarize, I'll be building a simple start page similar to other flight search web pages, basically where the user can enter from where he wants to fly to which destination and which date, and he can basically click on search and will be brought to another page where the results are shown for what flights are available and the prices for these flights. And we're going to do that all without code. All we would need to do is basically connect the external API into our Bubble application, and Bubble has a plugin for that, a native plugin made by Bubble themselves, which is called the API connector. So the first thing we want to do actually is go into Bubble, click on create a new app, and create a new app, and you can call whatever you like. I called it Flight Search Nocode HQ, and after creating your app, you'll be brought into the editor, which will look something like this. And the first thing I actually want to do, I just want to go to plugins, and what you want to do, you want to click on add plugins, and you want to search for API connector and install this plugin here, and it will look something like this. And before I'm actually going to go ahead connecting the API, I want to start building the design of our app, and we're going to keep it quite simple. So let me actually decrease the height a bit. I'm just going to add a group here at the top, and let me position that like this. And let's say, okay, this should have a maybe a gradient background. Let's say, I don't know, purple maybe, purple like this, and let's have a darker purple like this. Okay, yeah, it doesn't look good. Let's do it like this maybe. Yeah, I mean, you can decide whatever you want to do, but I'm just going to leave it as it is right now. I want to uncheck the box, make this element fixed width, because it should accommodate the whole page. When resizing, let's just add a header here, and let's say this header, let's make it bigger, and let's center it. Let's make it white as well, and this header should say flight search web app. Okay, and I just want to have a subtitle beneath that. Let's just copy this text, place it underneath, center that again, and I just want to call this, make that smaller. That's a subtitle, and this should be search for flights within the US using this flight or search engine or something like this. Okay, and the next thing I actually want to do is, so let me actually resize that a bit and place that here. And let's also, maybe you can add an about text here about this web page, and modify the style basically according to your needs, but that's up to you. I'm just going to add a placeholder so it looks a bit nicer, a text here with some placeholder text. Okay, and let me actually group these two together, and let's center this group actually like this, and assign the text like this. And let me also just add a quick image so that the page doesn't look too empty. Again, that's just now filling in some random images and data so that the page doesn't look too empty. So let's search for airplane. Maybe there is a free image that we can use. Yeah, let's just use this image maybe like this. And great, let's position that accordingly, and I think that should be it. So before I'm going to continue modifying design, actually, what you want to do, you want to go to rapidapi, create an account, and search for the API, which is called Skyscanner Flight Search API. And it's actually a free API, so if you go to pricing, it's completely free. You have an unlimited number of requests and query sessions. There's just a rate limit. But yeah, it's completely free, so you can just go ahead, and rapidapi will automatically generate your own rapidapi key here, which is unique to your account. So please don't use the same API key that I'm using now. You can use your own, And yeah, that's the way the Skyscanner Flight Search API page looks. Basically, as you can see, these are all the basic possibilities of what data we can get from this API. So relevant for us is going to be two API endpoints. So first of all, the Places API. We want to get all the airports basically that we can incorporate in our search, which is a GET request. So we get data, and we also want to browse flight price, and we want to browse routes. So these are the two endpoints we will want to use. And the thing is, if you click on browse routes and you can go down, so you see some parameters for the header of the API. Don't worry about that. What's more important is the required parameter. So this is the information basically that the API wants to get in order to give us data. Okay, and it wants to know for which country you want to search flights for, the currency, of course, the locale you want the results in, the origin place, that's important. So in this case, this is San Francisco Airport, and destination airport, in this case, that's Chicago. The outbound date, so when you want to leave the flight going, and this is the inbound date. That's an optional parameter, but we're going to still use that. So basically, that's the date of when you want to come back. So I looked at that because what the user should change in our web app should be, of course, the origin place, the destination place, the outbound partial date, and the inbound partial date. So basically 4 fields that will have to be, or the user has to choose from, and 2 of them are airports and 2 of them are dates. So let's remember that and go back to our Bubble application. Let's actually add a group now in the center here. Let's just center that. Let's remove the background color. We don't need that. And let's actually have a text here. Let's have a text which says where, okay? Maybe let's make that bigger like this. And underneath I'm gonna add, or actually let's go to plugins and let's search for a date picker. And there is again a native one by Bubble, I think so. Date and time, or we can just use the air date and time dropper. That's a nice plugin, so that's free, just install that. Let's go back, and under where, I actually want to insert a search box, okay? And this search box, let's position that here. Let's actually remove the style. I don't like that style. Let's edit the style here, and let's say this is also Arial, like this, and let's make that have a white background, so flat background, okay? Yeah, it looks a lot better. And what we want to say, okay, we want to define a list of options. And the list of options should be fetched from the external API. So the options that a user can search from will be the airports. But we're going to leave that for a few minutes later. Let's just change the placeholder text. Starting point maybe. And then we want to have a search box for the destination. So let's just resize that. The destination, okay, and of course I also want to allow the user to enter the dates. Let's also have the text here which says when, and let me just check what the issue here is. Okay, like this. And what we want to do now, we want to insert our air date time dropper. So let's search for that. We want to select the date dropper. Let's select that here, okay, and again, we're going to say, okay, this is when you want to leave. So the theme, you can just choose whatever you want. I'm just going to leave it at blue-white. The placeholder is going to be choose starting date, okay. And for the next, let's copy just that and say choose end date, okay. Or destination or return date, okay. And let's actually just apply maximum width to this page, and let's just take a quick preview. Let me check what the issues here are. It doesn't matter, let's just preview the app anyway. And actually I have a password on this app, so let me just go to settings and remove the password, and again click preview. And if we take a look at the Bubble application now, let's ignore the search box right now, but as you can see, we have our date picker, and if you click that, users can scroll through the date, and we have the when, basically the starting date and the end date. And let me actually go back now. A few things I want to change. I want to change the font color. So let's change that to white, and let's actually make that a bit bigger, 15 maybe, and the same here, white and 15. And let's also just add a text so user knows what this is basically. So a text underneath. Let's just remove the style, make it white, and let's call it starting date. And let's call the other text here return date. Okay, great. So the next thing I want to do actually is create our first API connection. So in this case, we want to populate these two search boxes with the available destination airport. So we're going to use that or do that using the get list places API endpoint. And let's actually go back to Bubble now. Under plugins, let's create a new API here. So let's say add another API. I'm going to call that flight search. And I want to add, first of all, I want to add a shared header. So under authentication, we want to add a private key in the header, okay? And let's, the key name should be, let's go back, should be whatever this here is. So x minus rapid API minus key. So let's enter that. X minus rapid API minus key. And if we're going back again, just copy your key here. That's the same for all these endpoints and just paste that here. Okay, great. Okay, so small thing I want to just add, I just checked actually, and we can't get all the places from this API, so that won't be of use for us. So we have to make a small change. So what I want to do, I'm actually going to delete the search boxes, and we're just going to replace them with a drop down. And this is a bit more of a, let's just edit the style here as well. This is a bit more of a manual procedure, and it's not ideal, but it will still work. And I mean, if you're building a big application, you can do this once. So what you will have to do, you will just have to enter all the choices of airports here. And or what you could do as well, let's actually use a search box, and let's just go to data now. Let's create a new type, and let's call this type airport. Okay, and under airport, we want to create a new field called airport ID. Okay, field type is text. Let's create that, and let's just create a few. So under all airports, let's just create a few airports. So what you want to do, you want to use the ID that is provided by this API. So for example, for the Chicago airport here, the place ID is Chia Sky. So let's just copy that, and let's create a few IDs. So let me just create that like this, and let's also search for New York. Get test endpoint, and we have a few airports for New York. We have JFK/Sky. So let's just create that, JFK minus Sky. And what else do we have? We have EWR Sky. Okay. Let's create that. Let's also maybe go to San Francisco. Just test the endpoint, and let's take the SFO minus Sky. So just so that you know, of course, it wouldn't be smart to do this for all the airports. What you want to do, you want to fetch all the airport IDs and just import that into your Bubble database. And now we can actually fetch that by going to our search box and saying, okay, the choices start should be a dynamic choice, and it should be taken from our type airport, and the field to search should be the airport ID. Okay, and the placeholder should just be a starting airport, and the second part basically of this search query should be the destination airport, and it should also be a search for airport IDs. Okay, so that's it. Let's also just add a button here at the bottom, and this button should say search. Okay, and now comes, let's actually change the color of this button. Let's make that yellow. I think that's nicer. Okay, great. So now the interesting part basically comes. So what I'm gonna do is, once this button is clicked, I want to bring the user to another page, which I'm gonna create now, I'm basically gonna call it the search page, and we will send some parameters in the URL of this page depending on what the user chose here. But before I'm going to do that, I actually have to just quickly create a new page. I'm going to just call it search, and let's just click create, and we can go immediately back. We don't need anything else. Let's go back, and let's just double click on this button. Let's say, let's start at a workflow. When this button is clicked, we want to navigate to the page search, and we want to send some parameters to this page. And now we can define what parameters should be sent. So let's just quickly go back, and we can see, okay, these are the 4 parameters we need. Sorry, let's go to browser routes. These are the parameters we need. These are fixed. We're going to take a look at that in a second. These 3 are fixed. We don't want the user to change that, but we want these 3 parameters. So we want this, or these 4, sorry. Starting date, end date, starting airport, end airport. And if you go back, let's create a first key, which is starting airport. And this is going to be, or let's actually make that a bit shorter, the parameter, otherwise the URL is going to be too long. I'm just going to call it starting airport, okay, sair, and this is going to be whatever the value of the search box starting airport is going to be, the airport ID. Our key end airport is going to be whatever the search box destination airport's value airport ID is. The starting date, or let's call it start, is going to be whatever the air date dropper A's value is. However, we want to format it however the API wants it. And if we look, the API wants year, so basically the year / the month / the day. So let's just format that as custom. So we want to have year, month, and day. Okay, and let's just add another parameter, and let's call it end. And this should be whatever air date dropper B's value formatted as custom is year, month, and day. Okay, great. And that's basically it. So let's actually just test that. Let's refresh our page here, and let's just search for an airport. So let's say, for example, JFK Sky to San Francisco. Okay, and we want to leave on the 24th. We want to return on the 25th, and let's click search. And you can see that right now, but I'm going to drag the page down a bit so you can see, okay, our URL is now flight search, blah, 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 /search, that's the page, question mark, our first parameter is sair, which is JFK Sky, ending airport, San Francisco, start date, this date, and end date, this date. So that works really nicely. However, our search page is obviously empty. So let me continue, go back and start editing this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to plugins now. I want to create our first API call. So we have the key name and the key value from before already, but let's add another call, and let's call this call get quotes. Okay, and that's going to be a bit more of an advanced part now, but you still won't need any code. It's just some API connection. So let's go back to skyscanner, to the Rapid API page, and want to browse the routes. And again, what you want to do, you just want to copy this URL here. Let's just copy all of this first of all, okay, and let's just paste that here. And as you can see, okay, this is the endpoint, Skyscanner, Flight Search, Rapid API, API Service, and so on. Browse routes is the endpoint we're choosing. V1 is basically the API version. US is the country within we're searching. So for example, if you want to make a search flight app for Germany, you would use another abbreviation. USD is the currency. So if you want to have a different currency, you can just enter that here. But I'm going to leave it as US dollars. This is the locale. So this is again something that is fixed. We're going to leave all of these 3 basically parameters as fixed. This parameter, however, should be variable. So it should not always be San Francisco Airport. So if we go back, San Francisco Airport is the origin place. So we can just go back to our API, replace that here within the URL. And as you can see, use brackets here, square brackets for parameters. So just hold, on a Mac, it's Alt and 5 and 6. So I'm going to just enter that. And you can just enter basically the parameter name inside these brackets. So I'm going to call it origin airport. As you can see, it's automatically created here. Then this obviously is the destination airport. Okay, let's just go back. The next part here is the outbound partial date. So when you want to leave. Okay, so again, I'm going to just go here and I'm going to change this to enter brackets again and call this outbound date. And at the end, we have inbound partial date equals. And again, I'm going to replace this date. And this is just going to be inbound date. And as you can see, we now have basically variable data or parameters for each of these parameters. So we can change which origin airport and destination airport and so on we want to get information for. But however, the only thing is, just for this testing, testing this API in your Bubble application, you will want to enter some values so that you can initialize the call first time. So let's just copy that data from here. Let's choose San Francisco as the origin airport. Let's choose sure, Chicago. And let's have an outbound date, maybe 2019 December 1st and 2019 December 2nd. And let's actually uncheck this private because it's not going to be private. And let's initialize the call. And as you will see, Bubble returns some values, which works quite nicely, and returns all this data here. And you can either take a look at the raw data, which might be a bit, yeah, overwhelming for some people that never saw this, but it's just a simple JSON format. But you can work with this. So as you can see, Bubble returns us a quotes, which is a list, with various quotes, which consists of an ID, a price, that's important, whether the flight is direct, and all this information here, the departure date, the quote date and time, and a list of places, a list of carriers, and a list of currencies. And you can say, for example, okay, the minimum price of what type is it? Is it a number? Is it a text? Whatever you want to do, but I'm going to keep it at number. And let's just click save now, okay? And that's basically it, to be honest. So what I'm going to do now, we can go to our search page and start building the search page. So the first thing I want to do, I just want to make the background color a bit grayish. Let's add a text here at the top, okay? And let's just go back to the index page and let's copy this whole box here. So I'm going to select the whole group, copy it, insert it in our search page here, and let's place it at the top. So I'm going to place the text here like this, and the box here as well. Let's make that all a bit smaller. We don't need that much space, so let's put that here. And now basically comes the important part. This here, let's actually change the font color, sorry, so that's visible. Okay, and here as well. This box should be populated with value which is fetched from our URL. So if you might remember, we're sending parameters to the search page, and we can now work with these parameters. Let's just quickly go back to index and remind ourselves which parameters we sent or how we called them. So we're sending starting airport, ending airport, start and end. So let's go back to search and let's populate the starting airport. Let's say the default value should be get data from page URL and should be the parameter called SAIR, okay? Right, you have to do something else. We have to just clear that. We have to say, okay, do a search for airport where the airport ID equals get data from external API, from page URL, SAIR, and we want to get the first item, okay? And that should be the default value. Same thing, let's just copy this expression, enter that here. And let's remind ourselves again how I called this parameter. So I called it EIR. So let's go to search again, and I'm just going to paste that default value here, and we're just going to change this to EIR, okay? And for the date, basically the same thing. The initial date should be get data from page URL. Parameter is start, okay? Formatted as date, I believe. No. Oh, actually, it's of type date. So let's say it's of type date, okay? And for here, we're going to say get data from page URL. It's called end, and it's also of type date. And before I'm actually going to do anything else, let's just check if that works. So I'm going to refresh the page here, and let's enter our airport again. So we want to start from JFK to San Francisco. Let's just leave the date maybe like this, and let's click search. And as you can see, that works really nicely. Our search box is pre-populated with the starting airport we just inputted, the ending airport, the start date, and the end date. So that looks nice. A few small issues here, but we're going to fix them. So let's go back to search. First of all, I want to remove the fixed width here. We don't need that. I also want to change the font of this here, font color, to black as well. for this date dropper as well. Okay, and let's add a text here at the top, and let's call this quotes for flights from, and again we're going to say search box starting airport value, airport ID, to search box destination airport value, airport ID, for air date droppers value, air date droppers A's value. I think this is the correct correction. Let's just refresh that then. And it should be, yep, okay. So it shows quotes for flights from JFK to San Francisco for November 23rd to November 24th. So this, if we change that here dynamically, so change it to, I think we had something like this. What do we have? Newark, do we have? Yeah, so now it says quotes for flights from EWR. So let's just go back. Let's also just center that, apply a maximum width, and let's make that bigger. Okay, and let's drag that a bit down, center that again, and I think the rest looks quite fine. Let's also just change the format here. So airdropper A's value formatted as, and let's just have the same format again. So like this. And the same here, I'm going to change the format to the same custom format. Okay, and the last thing is just it's quite easy, to be honest. We just want to add a repeating group. Okay, I just drag that here. Let's just center that, and let's also apply a maximum width. Let's say, okay, we want to have 2 rows, and we want to have extended vertical scrolling. The type of content is going to be important now. It's going to be the get quotes quote, okay? And the data source should be get data from an external API, and we're going to choose the flight search get quotes. As you can see now, or automatically the 4 parameters that we set as the ones we need are shown here, and we can dynamically choose what the parameters should be. So what I'm going to say, okay, the origin airport should be whatever search box starting airport's value airport ID is. The destination airport should be whatever search box destination airport's value airport ID is. The outbound date should be the air date dropper A's value, and the inbound date should be also the air date droppers, the different date dropper. So let's just check actually, let's call this one B. I think that's going to make things easier. So let's just go back to our search here. Okay, that's correct. The outbound date, and no, actually that's wrong. We want to have the B here and the A here. And that's basically it. This repeating group is going to display data fetched from the API. We connected using the API connector, using these 4 parameters, which are dynamically fetched from these values here. And these values are fetched basically from the URL, which is taken from the index page. So what you just want to just choose the get quotes, the list of quotes, and we will now have access to all these quotes within here. So what you want to do, you just want to add, let's actually make that smaller. You just want to add a group here, just insert that into the repeating group. Let's just center that vertically and horizontally. Let's remove the separator. Let's say, okay, let's add a shadow actually to this to make it look a bit nicer. Let's add a nice effect, so conditional. When this group is hovered, we want to change the shadow style or the horizontal offset and the vertical offset and make them bigger. So the horizontal and the vertical offset, let's make them bigger. Great. And now we can just enter the data that we're fetching for each group. So let's enter text here. Let's call this the current, or actually we have to change the type of content of this group, which should be of type get quotes quote, and it should be the current sales get quotes quote. And the text here can now be dynamically generated. So the parent group's minimum price, which is the price for this flight in US dollars. Let's make that a lot bigger and bold. And this should be the most important part. Maybe let's put that like this. And let's see what else we can add as data. Let's say, okay, we want to fetch the parent group's quotes direct, okay. And we want to format it as a text. So basically the direct field is a Boolean, so it can be yes or no, but we can format it as text. And we want to, if it's yes, we want to say direct flight And if it's no, we want to say indirect flight. And that's basically it. It's quite easy. Let's make that a bit bigger, and let's make that like grayish. And I'm just going to copy this text here, paste that here, and let's also fetch the departure date. Okay, let's just say departure date. Okay, and like this. Let's see what else we can fetch. Destination ID, we don't need that. Departure date, origin ID, the carrier IDs. Okay, it's actually position that here. Great. And yeah, let's actually go ahead now and test this whole thing. So I'm going to go back to our Bubble app. Let's just go to our index page and let's refresh everything. And let's say, for example, okay, so we're searching for flights from JFK to San Francisco. When, let's say, I don't know, on the 1st of December, and one return maybe a few days later on the 4th. And let's click on search. Let's check what the issue is here. And it says, okay, return an error. Please consult the documentation. Your call is set up properly. The error is blah, 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 blah. Incorrect date format. So let's take a look what the issue is. The date format is incorrect. So let's just actually quickly go back here and see what the issue is. And we want to say, okay, the source of the repeating group, blah, blah, blah. And let's just format the date here again. So that's formatted as, again, custom. And let's say this is year, month, day. Let's copy this and do the same for this value here. So format it again and enter that. And let's just refresh that whole page here now. Now it should work. Awesome. Okay, it works perfectly. As you can see, we have our quotes here for flights. So the direct flight, indirect flight, direct flight, this costs $476. This is $257. We can see the departure date and all this data, and we can basically scroll as long as there are quotes for these prices. And it's dynamically updated. So if we change, for example, okay, instead of flying from JFK, we want to fly from Newark. Let's just enter that. The repeating group will automatically update almost instantly and show the new quote. And yeah, you can basically dynamically change all this data. So let's just go back again, test that again. Let's say let's refresh this page. And let's say we want to start from Newark Airport to San Francisco. And let's say we want to start on the 25th and return, I don't know, 29th. Let's search that. And again, we should be shown quotes for flights from EWR to San Francisco for the 25th of November to the 29th of November. And basically, you have created your own flight search web app in a matter of 30 minutes without writing a single line of code, using a free external API and the great web app builder Bubble. And of course, you would now go ahead and heavily modify your app and add new features, more features. There's a lot you could do now. Of course, this is quite empty. You want to add more data here. You want to actually show which carrier that is, maybe enter a link for the carrier's website. We have access to the carrier data, by the way, so you can use that. And yeah, you can do a lot of stuff. I would actually also change, instead of the airport codes here, what you could do, you could just go to data. And for airport, you could have an airport ID type. You could also just say, have the airport name. And let's change that to text. And what you could say, okay, users should be able to search for the airport name. So let's call this JFK Airport. And sorry, that should be San Francisco. San Francisco Airport, for example. And let's say here, this is Newark Airport, and so on. And if we can now go back to our index page, we can say, okay, the user shouldn't search for the airport ID. He or she should search for the airport and here as well. And this will increase the user experience. And there's a lot of stuff you can obviously do right now. Work on the UI. Let's just check that. So now you can search for San Francisco Airport and Newark Airport. That's a lot nicer than the abbreviations. But now still the IDs will be sent because we didn't change any of that. And it should still work perfectly fine. And yeah, That's basically it regarding this tutorial. It should also show you that you can basically integrate every external API you want into your Bubble application without any issue and create amazing applications. And I hope you learned something in this tutorial, and I'm going to see you for the next tutorial with Nocode HQ. Bye.